The title is An AI Supported Study on Religiously Sensitive Language Design, ChatGPT versus Gemini. The presenter is Zisan Jahangir, who is an independent researcher and entrepreneur with over a decade of experience leading ventures in Turkey and the United States, including roles as chairman of ISIN Software and Technology and ZEB Innovation and journal manager of IMED Sur- Surgical Ally. His work spans theology, AI philosophy, public policy, and indeed engineering. He is a prolific author with multiple books and international publications, including work on prompt engineering. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Visan Jahangir.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. Just one quick question before I start. I believe there was supposed to be one person before I make the presentation, and I will also be making two presentations on behalf of my team. The first one is the one you explained. The other one is titled The Illusion of Infallibility in AI.
Oh, yes. So, Zisan, actually, that was the second presentation. So, we do have the first one, but that person wanted to wait a few minutes. So,
Oh,
we
great.
actually jumped to the second one. So, you actually will be doing two presentations. You want me to talk about the other one right now as well?
Uh, well, does not really matter. Works for me.
So how about you finish this one and then I will introduce the title of the next one. It's a 15-minute presentation, Zisan, and I'll be giving you a 5-minute, 2-minute, and 1-minute cues just so you know how much time we
Thank you
have
very
left.
much. Thank you. Let me just share my presentation real quick, and then I can start. Moment.
Yes.
So I believe everybody can see without a
Yeah.
problem.
We can see your presentation, Zisan.
Wonderful. So first of all, hello everybody. I would like to start by saying thank you very much for coming today. I will be making this AI-assisted study on designing language sensitive to religious psychology paper on behalf of my team. I hope you all enjoy it. We enjoyed it while we were preparing it. Before I start going through with the presentation, I would like to basically give a brief explanation of what we wanted to do over here. So basically, in this study, we examined how generative AI tools can produce different effects in the context of Muslim mental health, which is the main focus of this organization. More specifically, we compared two different AI systems across 4 languages, 3 user profiles, and 2 levels of prompt engineering. Our central question in this study was, how can the same religiously and psychologically oriented question carry different psychological impact potentials when it is answered by different tools, in different languages and for different types of users? So the main reason we conducted this study is that generative AI is no longer just a technical or academic tool. It has increasingly become a resource for everyday guidance, meaning making, asking religious questions, and even psychological relief. Muslim users in particular may turn to these systems with sensitive questions about prayer, destiny, sin, love of God, or religious authority. The critical issue here is the same question. When answered in a different language or by a different AI system, may produce a response that is hopeful, balanced, and supportive, or on the contrary, one that reinforces guilt, helplessness, or cycles that are not easy to answer. For this reason, our main concern is not only technical accuracy, but also the psychological impact of these responses. The context of Muslim mental health care. It also involves multiple psychological dimensions, such as hope, comfort, perceptions of destiny, self blame, repentance, and the search for meaning. In other words, a response may appear religiously familiar while still being psychologically harmful. For example, language that is overly certain, overly accusatory, or encouraging repeated checking may increase scrupulosity and anxiety, especially in vulnerable individuals. For this reason, evaluating the use of generative AI in the field of Muslim mental health becomes important from clinical, pastoral, and community-based perspectives alike. This study aligns directly with the theme of this year. That is because we are not looking only at technology and we are not looking only at mental health either. At the same time, we bring together language, developmental level, religious sensitivity, user experience, differences between AI tools, and prompt engineering. In other words, this study does not focus on a single discipline. It shows how areas that often appear separate actually need to be considered together. The core problem we are trying to address is if people are asking generative AI systems religious and psychological questions, then we need to know which tool is more appropriate in which language, for which age, and under which prompting structure. In this context, the more meaningful question is not simply which tool is the best, but rather which tool is more appropriate in which context. For that reason, our study examines the tool, language, persona, and the prompt engineering level altogether. The main aim of this study was to systematically compare the responses of two different generative AI systems directed at Muslim users. To do this, we asked five main questions. First, does language make a difference? Second, do personas representing different age and educational levels change the result? Third, does trained, that is more deliberate and informed, prompt engineering affect the performance of these tools? Fourth, in which contexts are ChatGPT and Gemini relatively stronger or weaker than one another? And finally, under which conditions do risk flags such as hopelessness, or developmental mismatch emerge? This study was designed using a fully factorial comparative framework. We used two AI tools, ChatGPT and Gemini. We included four languages: Turkish, English, Arabic, and French. We defined three different personas: middle school user, high school user, and undergraduate user. In addition, we used two prompt levels, novice and trained. Under each condition, we asked 15 questions. In total, this resulted in 720 responses. This structure allowed us not only to make overall comparisons, but also to observe the interactions among language, age level, tool, and experience. Methodologically, the process unfolded in 5 stages. First, we developed the question set. Second, we applied the same question set to ChatGPT and Gemini under different persona and prompt engineering conditions. Third, we converted the resulting wide format dataset into a long format for analysis. Fourth, because no formal human ratings were available, we developed a set of proxy indicators to capture likely psychological effects. In the final stage, we used these scores to compare the tools, languages, personas, and experience levels. This analytic workflow was AI assisted, however, it was human supervised. In particular, GPT-5 was used for data organization, visualization, and comparative analysis. To reduce bias during analysis, we masked which responses came from which AI system and referred to them as AI-A and AI-B. Our question set was built around five main themes that are especially sensitive in the context of Muslim mental health: God and prayer, destiny and responsibility, sin and scrupulosity, revelation and the reliability of knowledge, and love and meaning. These themes were not selected at random. They were designed to represent the most critical points of intersection between religious content and psychological impact. In addition, the language level was adjusted for each persona. For the middle school level, the wording was shorter and more concrete. For the high school level, it was moderately abstract. And for the undergraduate level, it was more conceptual and systematic. This allowed us to evaluate not only differences between the AI tools, but also developmental appropriateness. In this study, instead of using a traditional coding approach based on human raters, we employed a 7-dimensional proxy evaluation system, as I have mentioned before. This system included 7 indicators: hope, guilt, shape, agency, empathy, triggering language, epistemic caution, and developmental appropriateness. This goal was not only to ask whether a response was correct in content, but also to make visible the question of what kind of psychological effect the response might potentially produce. For that reason, we examined protective signals such as hope, small actionable steps, non-judgmental tone, and referral to a local religious authority, alongside risk signals such as shaming language, encouragement of repeated checking, and excessive certainty. So net proxy is our summary indicator showing the overall balance between protective language and risk-related language. We constructed it from two components. The first one is OES proxy, which represents positive effects signals, hope, agency, empathy, epistemic caution, and developmental appropriateness. The second is KUS proxy, which represents the risk load, shame-related language, and scrupulosity triggering signals. We then calculated the difference between the two. We did net proxy equals OES proxy minus KUS proxy. In this way, the positive values indicate a more productive language pattern, while negative values indicate a riskier one. This metric allowed us to compare different tools and contexts in a single summary score. When we look at the overall results, ChatGPT's total net proxy score was 0.389, whereas Gemini's was 0.345. The difference is not very large, but it is consistently in favor of ChatGPT. At first glance, this might suggest that ChatGPT is better. However, an important caution is needed here. This advantage is context sensitive. In other words, even if one tool appears stronger in the overall average, it does not maintain the same advantage across every language, every age level, and every prompt condition. Therefore, the main conclusion of the study is not that there is a single winner, but rather that the stronger tool may change depending on the contexts. One of the most striking findings by language is this. ChatGPT performed noticeably better in English and Turkish. The difference was especially clear in English. In Turkish as well, ChatGPT appeared to use a more agentic, more cautious, and more directive style of language. By contrast, Gemini was more competitive and, in some dimensions, even stronger. In Arabic and to a more limited extent in French. This suggests something important. In AI-generated outputs, language is not merely a matter of translation. Each language appears to reveal different aspects of a model's capacity for empathy, caution, and guidance. The largest difference at a persona level emerged in the undergraduate condition. In other words, for the user profile that called for a higher level of abstraction and more academic style of language, ChatGPT stood out more clearly. By contrast, the gap became smaller at the middle school and high school levels. This suggests that Gemini may have a tendency to produce shorter, simpler, and developmentally more balanced responses for younger profiles. At a prompt engineering level, we found another important result. Trained prompt engineering, that is more deliberate question framing and the use of structured prompts, reduced the gap between the two tools. This supports the conclusion that a good prompt can be almost as important as the choice of the tool itself. This may be the most critical slide from the practical standpoint because it summarizes the strengths and weaknesses of each tool real quick. ChatGPT's main strengths are agency, generation of concrete action steps, and epistemic caution. In other words, it is especially strong at telling the user what they can do, encouraging progress through small steps, and using cautious language rather than presenting a single absolute answer. Gemini's relative strengths, by
Tom,
contrast,
I
yes,
just want to give you a 5 minute prompt.
thank you. Uh, Gemini's relative strengths, by contrast, are empathy and developmental appropriateness. It appears more capable of producing simpler, softer, and more age-appropriate language, especially for the younger personas. Therefore, the most accurate answer to the question, which tool is better, is not a single name, but rather for which user, in which language, and for what purpose. One of the most practical contributions of the study for MMHC participants may be this. Generative AI responses should be evaluated not only in terms of correctness, but also in terms of their psychological impact. For clinicians, this means language that strengthens hope and agency without increasing guilt. For religious guides, it means language that points to plurality and local authority rather than issuing absolute judgments. For educators, it means age-appropriate and accessible communication. And for researchers, it means not assuming that the same tool is equally safe across all contexts. The broader significance of this study is that generative AI cannot be evaluated solely in terms of technical performance. Even if a model comes close to providing correct information, it may still produce negative effects because of the wrong tone, the wrong developmental fit, or the wrong psychological framing. For that reason, safe use requires a three-part alignment: the right tool, the right prompt engineering, and the right contextual fit. In conclusion, this study offers three clear messages. First, there are no meaningful differences between generative AI tools, and these differences matter psychologically. There are meaningful differences, I'm sorry. Second, these differences are not fixed. They change depending on language, developmental level, and prompt engineering. Third, safe use does not depend simply on choosing the strongest model, but on aligning the most suitable model, the most suitable prompt, and the most suitable context. Although ChatGPT appears slightly stronger overall, Gemini may provide a more balanced fit in Arabic and some in French for younger user profiles. For this reason, future use of generative AI in Muslim mental health should be guided by context-sensitive tool selection together with a standardized uh, prompt engineering framework. Thank you all for listening. I believe I used my time effectively, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gusan.
Everyone for the wonderful presentations on a very timely and interesting, controversial topic. Glad to see, I think, everyone engage with what is with our, evolving technology. We'll go through the questions for the next little bit. And if you have further questions, please continue to put them in the chat. Remember that you can connect with all of our presenters and researchers through the WOVA app as well. So just moving to the first question in the chat, Zishan, does this reflect programming bias that has appeared um, for users when asking about things like Islam or Palestine due to the known conflict interests of the developers of these tools between, OpenAI and Gemini?
Uh, to given summarized answer, yes. The main purpose, main aim of this study exactly was not this. However, we as a team who prepared this paper also prepared a paper previously. I believe it was about Islamophobia and AI tools. We did more better tests with questions and different AI models. I believe if anybody is interested can find that on the internet or in academia.edu. That is an interesting study about this question much better. But yes, if I were to directly answer this question. Your microphone is off, mister. If that works for you, I can continue with the questions. I prepared some short notes for myself while...
Okay. Yeah, if you feel comfortable with that, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The question, how do you think Shaikh AI changes the landscape of religious authority in America? I will give a short answer once again. It will be it won't be as expected because similar to the previous question, the developers of these tools are clear, like the side that they are on and their perspectives on Islam is very clear. And as an answer, I don't know the AI exactly, Sheikh AI, but just like AI models in general, they're not going to be much effective, unfortunately, because even if specific AI apps are created, the data sets are mostly from like groups that are not very okay with the Islamic effect in AI. I believe that's like kind of an answer. I cannot give a direct answer because I don't know the app, but yeah. Thank you, Ms. Zainab, about her word regarding the research being good. Thank you very much. About the question, do you think that there is a divergent trend in the acceptance of AI in the Muslim community between those who value authority and the Isnad tradition and those who prioritize applying the abstract contextual meaning? So what I can say about that is the current situation is it is not that bad as of today, but it will continue being like the gap will be wider as time goes by because currently there are some like how can I say this? The acceptance is going very well because like Muslim users, like I don't like this is not concrete information, but just like my perspective, Muslim scholars and researchers and just like people in general. I don't know the exact reason, but have a very high acceptance of the AI apps. I don't know why exactly, but as I said, and it is very much used in religious studies, religious researches, and that kind of thing. What I can say is it is currently not that much of a difference between those who value authority and the Islamic tradition. But as I said, as time continues, it will be much more. And there was another question from Ms. Zainab. She asked about my thoughts on specialized AI faith-based tools such as Dean Buddy AI. Once again, I never had the chance to use this Dean Buddy AI app. I will be looking to it as soon as we close. But something that I need to say here, this is just like a comment in general, like even like famous Islamic scholars such as Ghazali and Ibn Rushd have some main differences in thought regarding issues about faith. So I don't know how a specific AI can just like help us in that perspective. As I said, I don't know the app. I don't know what you meant exactly. But I believe like the more the apps, the better, because the AI apps, as I have mentioned in my presentation, the user should be using them as a platform to receive different opinions. So the more the apps, the more the opinions, and the more possibility of the user finding the correct answer that they desire. So I believe there is a new question which I don't have a note as of now. I will just read it right now. I guess this question could be for anyone. Are there any suggestions any of you would have for when people are looking for mental health support through AI tools? What to be critical of with the information? So if the other presenter brother has any specific suggestions for this question, I will be very happy. But in my opinion, as I have explained, the tool itself is not that important. The way you use it, like as I said in the paper, the AI app are more important. So what I can be suggesting is uh, like all of us, everybody should focus a bit more while writing the prompts to an AI app. It does not really matter, so that the answer that we receive helps us better in our thoughts regarding the mental health part, because it is very like it's a very important area. Like mental health is in some occasions more important than physiological health. So yeah, that's the only thing I could be saying. Thank you once again for this question on my part. Thank you all.
Sean, I have a question myself, just looking
Yes.
through the presentations. It seems like so much of AI is a question of where you get your information from. So epistemology, and I know you talked a lot about the features of truth and, how do we get good information. So I'm just curious, it seems like, when you're saying the tool is not as important, it's how you prompt the tool and what we use, which to me sounds like more of a question of how do you, what's your thought process about gaining knowledge? So I guess, what's your observation of people today and the best way to help them understand how to use AI? Is it just to train them on the tool, or is it to train them on how to seek knowledge in general, which AI can be part of along with other things?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the question. I will do my best to not be so like marketive over here. We as a team, some part of our team, we have a books series regarding prompt engineering training. So basically, what we found while we were studying for those books were the first and the most important thing is expecting, like knowing what to expect approximately, because like everybody uses different AI apps. There are some popular ones, there are not so popular ones, and to basically better understand the performance and like the answers that you get, you should be expecting some kind of the answer, and you should be basically. Let me just put it this way: be careful in the beginning, and then I personally compare the performance of the apps even when I am using it. Like for example, just like a not so meaningful example, but my brother had an exam that he was trying to use AI while doing so, and what I did over there when I was helping him was I opened three different AI apps and I forwarded the same questions to all three of them, and I personally had to decide which one of them is the best. So in like that is not a very important area, but in important areas such as religion, religious studies, like faith or mental health issues, the chance to basically compare and to receive the best one and to not take what is not okay with you is the best way that I could be suggesting over here.
Okay, Sarah, do you think you could put your question in the chat and we can ask it, or you can ask it now?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I just quickly could, a very nice research, Zishan, alhamdulillah, all over. I think in our field, we are talking about this a lot because clients are using, especially younger clients. I had a client who, not to share much, but like is using even snippets of ideation and obsessions and all of that. And then it can really lead to misguidance and you don't know the privacy breach is obviously there, right? And then again, like you said, that religious questions or fiqh questions, we don't want to encourage our younger generations to go ask questions from AI, especially when these systems are designed by non-Muslims. Uh, anyway, I think it's analytical ourselves. And that's why the conversations, the deeper conversations that children can have, teens can have, even young people in their 30s and 20s, 40s can have amongst themselves as friends getting together and having hodgepodge of information from Western media, and then, having a slant on religious ideas, concepts in a way spitted out by chatbots and AIs that we have to, if clients bring to our their sessions or care, then we need to address, which means, again, we are analytical, encouraging them to be informed of how they utilize that information, or at least be able to refer them to a real spiritual leader, a sheikh or sheikha, or the books of Al-Ghazali and other imams. My question to you is that are Muslim young people like yourselves obviously designing more proactively, like a parallel set of AI programs where real, true, knowledge-based Islamic education and fiqh-based questions intertwined with mental health are uh, are going to be made available, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Well, first of all, thank you. What I can say to this is, inshallah, because I personally am not developing like any kind of AI apps, and but what I can see like upon research or from just like the social media and like AI development forums, what I can say is yes, people are really spending their time on this. The developers are trying to make much more useful and much more like better apps, basically. The only thing I can say over here is I kind of said this in a previous answer is like in the Islamic world, like even two people in the same house can have like major idea differences regarding religious issues. So I don't know if like they're like one day like I don't really see it possible for an AI app uh, one day to be said, okay, this is the best like AI app designed by Muslims, because like in our religion, as you all know, there are so much different thoughts, schools, and like one person is more comfortable with one school, the other person is not at all. So systematically, I don't know if it is possible for one AI app to be the best, but I know that people are working very hard on designing and creating much better AI apps that will hopefully give us all the chance to use against the AI apps that are developed by the Western media and Western like giant companies that do not really like the Muslims in the end.
Yeah, I'm also just, again, I'm thinking about the way we get knowledge, right? As humans living today, I think, who designs the tools, whether it's Western interest, non-Muslim, Muslim interest, if we're all interested in sort of gaining knowledge not only about Deen, but anything that's complicating our life in a very quick, short, efficient way that's built on programming and algorithms. I think that says something about our psyche that, no matter who designs the tools, it seems like humans, no matter where we're living, in America, Turkey, no matter where we are, Muslim, not Muslim, whatever faith, it seems like we really want short and quick answers. And so maybe some of those short and quick answers could be better if they're designed by people who may be more knowledgeable about mental health or Islam. But the deeper understanding about quick answers that are normed on an average algorithm um, may not be useful for very complex um, forms of engagement around mental health and religion, which is very intertwined and nuanced, and you need a living person there to work you through that.
Exactly, Mr. I completely agree with you because people we need to understand that some questions do not have a one sentence answer, and when you expect that, you are always going to miss something or misunderstand something. So for some specific topics and titles, we have to know that we have to dive deep and we have to understand the whole thing. So I agree with you on that entirely. Thank you very much.
Well, I think we're at the end of questions. I know, Zishan, you've been presenting and speaking quite a bit. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Mohammed or Usman. I think we may have lost him. But we encourage folks to please continue to send questions through the WOVA app. And please connect with everyone. Please continue to network. But if there are not any further questions, I think we can sign off. Please feel free to submit your CEUs and CMEs, and please keep us appraised of any questions you may have about that process. If no one else has any further questions, I think we can head to a break, and then we'll have some afternoon workshops, and we'll have a live streamed keynote address, inshallah.
Thank you all, Mr. Walid. Thank you, Ms. Zayam, if I'm pronouncing it right. Thank you all. As Mr. said, I will be very happy if I receive further questions later on through the app or through any other platforms. I am better at answering when I have the chance to think more on them. So thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you guys later in the workshop, inshallah.
Inshallah. Have a good day.